Well, with August having such a prolific new release set date, I was very surprised to see yet another album out on the turnpike, and this one really did something special, so let's talk about it. Hexahedron, live at the Henie Onstad Kunstsenter by Ulver. I think I finally got that one. So Ulver shouldn't really be all that new for a lot of people, especially if you're into that droney, post-rock kind of style of music. They really got their start in the early 90s of all things, like the mid to early 90s, sporting themselves at more of like a doom or black metal outfit with their first 3 or 4 albums. Like if you were listening to some of their more contemporary albums and heard that, oh yeah, Ulver was originally like a black metal, you'd be like, say what? But no, like their first like 3 or 4 albums were very like raw, energetic, with this doom style of metal and black metal. They started to really diversify and find themselves in the 2000s with a few different soundtracks under their belt. They really broke the mold in 2007 with Shadows of the Sun. This was the one that actually got me to pay attention to them because they were like really blowing up the scene at that point, transitioning into this drone, atmospheric, very post-rock essence, even dipping their toes into like Sun O, which they actually collaborated with in 2014 with Terrestrials. The album that really got my attention outside of Shadows of the Sun was the album in 2017, The Assassination of Julius Caesar. I really found myself loving this album. I love that they were kind of looking back into more of the 80s synthwave for inspiration on this album that then subsequently led into the album that they put out last year of Flowers of Evil, which I have to still be honest with you, even with about a year's arm length between me and that album, I'm still not a big fan of that album. I think they went a little bit too much into the synthwave area. The soundscapes and the sounds that they were developing just didn't do a whole lot for me. I was just kind of left a little cold with that album. So when it came to this next album of, I'm just going to say that it's Hexahedron, not Hexagon, Hexahedron. When they came into this particular album, I didn't have very high expectations, you know, like after being a little bit stung with the Flowers of Evil, I was just like, okay, well, whatever they produce, I'm going to be interested in because I still love their music, but, you know, I'm going to reserve my opinions. No, you know, I'm not going to be like really looking forward to their next effort. And this one is a live effort that they actually recorded back in April of 2018. So kind of coalescing at the same time as the assassination of Julius Caesar. So like it's producing some of my favorite times for them. The band themselves really, the way that they're marketing this album and talking about this album, it's kind of bonkers. Like they're saying they found themselves trapped in a multi-dimensional hypercube in the middle of an asymmetrical space. Inside, they experienced an all-new ideas in a insurmountable as galactic as the music presented as unmistakably Ulverish. So whatever that means. But what I will say is that, you know, spanning just over an hour's worth of music, that's essentially a continuous stream outside of maybe the halfway mark where they take just a hair of a break. We have, like I said, about an hour's worth of unbroken music that's new. It's really just experimenting the space, playing it out, seeing what comes, almost playing to the music that they're producing themselves. And in that respects, I really admire this, and I found myself really digging it. They really captured this essence of a hypnotic pattern, these tones and overlays of sounds that are very rich, they're very tangible. The first track that opens up the album of Enter the Void has these overlays of tones that akin to like a Sun O or like almost Tangerine Dream aspect, or Klaus Schutz, I think that's his name, of these like just overlays of synthetic tones that then kind of coalesce into this very tangible, almost, I don't know, Bach organ overlay that just provide this grand sound. It's reminding me very similar of what Anna von Holzenwolfen was doing last year with her All Traps Fly album, where it was very organ-centric. And this track opens up, and it takes like 15 minutes to really build itself and really climb. And using that inertia and using that momentum, we go into Aeon Blue, the second track, that continues this momentum, that continues this essence. We've left the organ aside that created this really big groundwork. The climb of the first hill is over, and we get about 10 minutes of this surveying of the land, when we get to see the landscape, not only of the landscape that we now find ourselves in, but also to survey the music that had come before. It's very rich in its tones. It's overlaid very, very well with one another. And this time we're getting a little bit more tangibility. Where we had Enter the Void was very ethereal and very insubstantial, we finally have some drum work in the 4 minutes of this track to really hammer home a foundation. So it's almost as though we're coalescing this smoky colors into a tangible foundation to which to build the second half of this album off on. I love the more higher ends on the notes on this one, particularly in the synths and the soundscapes on here. We're getting some clear visuals on here if you're more of a visual listener such as myself. And it's very trance-like. It's very hypnotic, this is where like the Tangerine Dream feels like the early stuff from like the mid 70s for their essences. It's very drone-ish without being repetitive or lethargic. It has a real heartbeat with that drumming sessions. And from there, again, without missing a beat, we go right into the third track of Bounty Hunter, which is probably the darkest of the tracks on here. There's a lot more undertones on this track. There's a lot more waiting in the wings and shadows hidden here and there within the track. The drums are still pretty forefront on this one. At no point does it ever become distracting or it overtakes itself. It always just provides that foundation that, say, Enter the Void was leaving up to interpretation. Here, we have a clear interpretation of where the song is going, and it follows suit with Aeon Blue with being very transy, very hypnotic. I feel myself just being floated away, and even though at this point we're over about a half hour's worth of music when we get into Bounty Hunter, I'm still feeling myself just overcome with how smooth everything is. Like, at no point does it feel drawn out. At no point does it feel tedious or boring. The entire journey so far has been very hypnotic to a point of very soothing. And Bounty Hunter is that like more darker approach where they're really experimenting with the sound in that sense. And at the end of Bounty Hunter, this is when we come into a very clear endpoint. This is the only time within the runtime of the album where a clear break within the music has happened. And it allows us to kind of just take a breather, take a breath before we get into the second half of the album. And allows us to also digest a little bit, to think about the music that has come about, to really process it before we come into a Fearful Symmetry. And the Fearful Symmetry is the only track off this album that actually has lyrics on it. And the lyrics, I feel, just kind of play second fiddle to the actual soundscapes of the vocals that are coming through. And that's kind of how I listen to albums anyway. I use the lyrics as a secondary instrument to kind of round out the sounds. And here, that's exactly what the vocals are doing on here. And like the first half of the album, this one takes its time to build, and the lyrics actually don't come in until about the second half of this track. So it isn't until about like the 4th minute or so that we finally have the lyrics, we have the singing on here. Everything else is just this gradual climb. We're building the songs back up. We're in a different landscape now. Things are a little bit brighter, a little bit more tangible, but still leave quite enough for this interpretation to take effect. It almost feels like it's very soundscapey in being like a soundtrack. Like, I'm feeling very, like neo-noir, futuristic androids, like kind of like Blade Runner, something like almost like a Vangelis would do if Vangelis was much more of a tangible writer rather than this ethereal feeling and emotive writer. So I'm getting flavors of, the 80s synth wave on this one. So I can see where that Assassination of Julius Caesar, as well as Flowers of Evil, this kind of writing style has kind of really showcased itself. And I love this kind of gradual build. And when the lyrics do hit, they sound very soothing and very rich, like a very viscous honey in that sense. Then we come to the final track off of this. Again, Fearful Symmetry really does bleed seamlessly into The Long Way Home, in that it's essentially just the play out of a Fearful Symmetry. Like, these two tracks could really be one full track in how they're presented, in a Fearful Symmetry being more of the tangible single track, and then The Long Way Home being the play out. And really what they do on A Long Way Home, I love. I really gush when I hear this particular track. It's very trance-like. It gets you into this trance-like mood, and it just hypnotizes you. And even though it is almost 20 minutes worth of this play out, it never feels boring. It never feels repetitive. It always feels fresh and new. You know, we're 18 minutes in, and at no point do I ever feel like, oh man, when are they going to get to the point? Like, it's all very enjoyable. I love the rhythm styles of this. The groove of it is very meaty and very tasty. We've had a good 50 minutes worth of music to really lay down the foundation, and now that we have such a solid foundation for which to play on, they're just exploring the space. They're really trying different things. They're hunkered into this almost metronome of sounds that have allowed themselves to enter this trance-like state, this almost meditative state, to allow them to build music on top of. And really, as I mentioned, they're just exploring the space. The music itself doesn't really wander all that far from the median center, but they do kind of explore and dig and try all different dimensions of this. And I found myself at the end being almost musically exhausted by the end of it, and I really found myself loving this. So in the end, Hexahedron was really an experience from start to finish. This isn't one that you can just kind of pick a piece here and there. You really do need to sit down and listen to the entire piece, because it is one piece of art, one piece of music. I found myself loving this album from my first sit down, and every time I listen to it, I find more that I enjoy. I find more nooks and crannies of this album that I really do appreciate and I really do love. I love that they really did explore the space, and because it's a live performance and everything is kind of all in one go, I feel myself being energized by all that. They're feeding off the audience, and the audience is feeding off them, so it's a very reciprocal relationship in that sense, and you can really feel the energy that was found within the space. I have no problem saying that Hexahedron from Ulver is an absolute masterpiece.
We're not worthy! We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
It's the first album of 2021 to receive the masterpiece status, so that really goes for something. This was the album that immediately grabbed my attention right from the get-go. Didn't need a whole lot of time to grow, but every time I sat down and listened to it, I still found myself extremely rewarded and found something new to appreciate and love about this. So if you haven't already listened to it, please, I urge you to go and listen to it. It's a run, don't walk, absolutely note seal of approval album. I think this is leagues ahead of Flowers of Evil, and even more, it took what I loved about the Assassination of Julius Caesar and brought it into the next dimension. So absolutely go and check this out. I love this album, absolutely. And yeah, it's just a fantastic time. So that's about it for me. I don't want to gush too much more about this album, even though I love it. I love it. I love it. And I mean, it really goes to show that so much amazing music came out in August. And this one's probably my favorite. And I know I said that about the Between the Buried and Me album that came out, but really this one supersedes that one even more so. So yeah. Go and check it out. It's a good time. I loved it. But that's it about me. What did you guys think about this album? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, let me know by commenting down below. And if you like what you see and you want to help support me, go and check out my Patreon. I've left the link down below. You get your name at the end credits. And I want to thank my newest sponsor of David E. Frez. David donated back in August, so thank you so much, David. I wanted to give you a proper shout out. So if you want to be cool like David, head on over to patreon.com/notesreviews. I've left the link down below to check out. Even $1 a month goes quite a long way. So you get your name at the end credits, and that's Always a fun time. And I've got some other things like my podcast of Quid Prog Quo. Go and check that out. It's a good time. And I hope to finally update my notes on tabletop role-playing games because I have a role-playing game that I want to talk about. So hopefully I'll be able to get that up within the next couple of weeks. So that's enough yammering on by me. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.